This story is titled, My Girlfriend Disappeared Days Before Our Engagement Party Without a Word. I knew she was with her ex, so I sold all her presents and canceled everything. But a couple days later, she was standing at my door begging. Hey Reddit, my name is Tyler, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a site supervisor at an engineering firm, and up until recently, I thought I had my life completely figured out. I was supposed to get married in 10 days when this absolute nightmare happened. My fiancée Sophia just disappeared without a trace and didn't answer any of my calls. For a terrifying moment, I genuinely thought I'd find her dead in a ditch somewhere. But no, apparently she just needed some space. With her ex-boyfriend. Here's exactly what went down, and trust me, it gets worse. Let me set the scene properly before I dive into this complete clusterfuck of a situation. 5 years ago, I met Sophia at my buddy's housewarming party. She was 27, incredibly smart, absolutely gorgeous, and somehow found my terrible jokes genuinely funny. We hit it off immediately, and what followed was a beautiful relationship. Dating, moving in together, and eventually the proposal that I thought went perfectly. I nailed it with a romantic rooftop dinner overlooking Biscayne Bay, and she said yes with tears streaming down her face. We spent months planning our wedding, and honestly, everything seemed perfect. The venue was booked, the caterer was lined up, and we had our dream honeymoon planned for the Bahamas. From the outside, we looked like the ideal couple heading toward their happily ever after. But there was one constant thorn in my side that should have been a massive red flag. Brianna, Sophia's college best friend and self-appointed guardian of female empowerment. Picture this woman if you can. Yoga pants 24/7, constantly posting those insufferable inspirational quotes on Instagram, and she always, without fail, had something negative to say about me. This woman would literally roll her eyes whenever I spoke, like it was her full-time job to disapprove of my very existence. It didn't matter what I said or did. I could have cured cancer, and she would have found a way to criticize my methodology. My older brother Derek, who's 36 and has never trusted anyone easily, immediately saw through Brianna's act. The first time he met her at a family barbecue, she started lecturing him about toxic masculinity while he was just trying to grill some steaks for everyone. Derek just looked her dead in the eyes and said, "The only toxic thing I see is whatever the hell you put in your eyebrows. They look like two slugs having a standoff." Sophia was absolutely pissed at him, but I nearly choked on my Corona trying not to laugh. The thing about Brianna was that she was perpetually single, but somehow considered herself a relationship expert who needed to protect Sophia from making mistakes. Yeah, she was one of those people. Sophia always defended her with the classic line, "She's just looking out for me." But every guy in our friend group knew exactly what the deal was. Brianna was the type of friend who would sabotage any relationship just to keep her friends single and miserable like herself. Whenever we'd have a group outing, Brianna would find a way to pull Sophia aside for these intense whisper sessions. Sophia would come back with this weird, distant look on her face, suddenly questioning plans we'd already made together, or bringing up concerns that were so obviously planted by Brianna. When I called her out on it once, Sophia hit me with the classic, "You're just being paranoid" defense, which only made me more frustrated. Brianna was like that one coworker who never actually does anything productive, but somehow ends up on every important email chain. She was useless, loud, and constantly trying to add value by stirring the pot and creating drama where none existed. Her whole personality was basically just a walking BuzzFeed quiz about red flags in relationships, and she seemed to take genuine pleasure in pointing them out to Sophia constantly. I should have seen the red flags when Brianna started showing up unannounced at our apartment more frequently as the wedding date approached. She'd arrive with these elaborate Pinterest boards full of alternative ceremony ideas that always seemed to involve pushing the date back or making major changes to our carefully planned event. Or she'd bring over these documentaries about finding yourself before settling down that would leave Sophia weirdly quiet and contemplative afterward. But I was so caught up in the excitement of getting married and finalizing all the details that I brushed off these warning signs. I figured it was just pre-wedding jitters and that Brianna was being her usual dramatic self. Anyway, our wedding was exactly 10 days away when everything went to hell. We'd spent months meticulously planning this thing. Every detail had been discussed, debated, and decided upon. I was sitting in my apartment that evening, waiting for Sophia to show up for our final venue meeting. We had to go over table placements, confirm the final meal counts, and handle all that boring administrative stuff that suddenly becomes your entire life when you're getting married. 8 o'clock rolled around and there was no Sophia. This was weird, but I wasn't immediately concerned. Traffic happens. Work runs late. These things occur. But I should have known something was seriously off when I realized she hadn't sent me her usual Venmo request for her daily overpriced green tea. This woman once reminded me that I owed her exactly $3.47 for gas money from a Taco Bell run we'd made together. Radio silence from her was absolutely not normal behavior. By 9 o'clock, there was still nothing. I'd sent multiple texts that were going straight to voicemail, which was starting to make me genuinely nervous. 10 o'clock hit, and that sick feeling settled into my gut. You know the one, like when you're about to get fired or receive terrible news. Sophia's phone was usually glued to her hand 24/7. This girl would text me from the bathroom, from important meetings, even while driving. I know, but that's how attached she was to her phone. Suddenly, having complete radio silence was completely out of character. By 11 o'clock, I was calling everyone we knew, desperately trying to track her down. Her co-workers hadn't seen her since she'd left work early specifically for our venue appointment. Her gym buddy hadn't heard from her either. I even called my buddy Mason, thinking maybe she was planning some kind of surprise with him, but he was just as clueless as I was about her whereabouts. I called her sister Madison, nothing. I called her parents. They had no idea where she was either. By midnight, I was legitimately freaking out and starting to imagine the worst possible scenarios. I drove over to her apartment, but it was completely dark and her car was gone. I used my emergency key to check inside, thinking maybe she'd fallen and couldn't reach her phone, or something equally dramatic had happened. The apartment was empty. Her bed was neatly made, the dishes were done, but her overnight bag was missing along with some clothes from her closet. That's when I knew this wasn't an accident or emergency. This was deliberate. The next day, I filed a missing persons report with the police. The cop looked at me like I was completely overreacting to the situation. "Sir," he said, with barely concealed irritation, "adults are allowed to go places without telling their partners." I wanted to scream at him that this wasn't some random disappearance. This was a woman who texted me when she was switching from Instagram to TikTok, who called me on her lunch break every single day without fail, and who was supposed to be marrying me in exactly 10 days. Day 2 arrived, and her parents started freaking out too. They were calling hospitals, reaching out to friends, even contacting her old college roommates from across the country. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Her mom became convinced that she'd been kidnapped, and honestly, I was starting to think she might be right. But there was this tiny, nagging voice in the back of my head whispering something much worse, that this was intentional. On day 3, the police finally called with news. They'd found her safe and sound, just chilling at her college friend Brianna's place 4 hours away in Tampa. Relief hit me like a freight truck, followed immediately by the cold, crushing realization of what this actually meant. She wasn't kidnapped, she wasn't hurt, she wasn't lying unconscious in a hospital somewhere. She had simply left and told absolutely nobody. Not her family, not me, nothing. The police officer informed me that she was safe and apparently needed space. Needed space. 10 days before our wedding. I tried calling her immediately, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I texted her desperately. "What the hell is going on? Are you okay? Is the wedding still happening?" No response whatsoever. I called Brianna's phone. No answer. I even sent Sophia an email, pouring my heart out and begging for some kind of explanation. Nothing. It was like she'd gone into full witness protection mode, except the only crime she'd witnessed was her own betrayal of our relationship. But that wasn't even the full story, and what came next absolutely destroyed me. Later that night, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is Kelly, Brianna's roommate," it read. "We've met a couple times at Sophia's birthday parties. Look, I can't stay silent about this anymore. Sophia isn't just taking space, she's with her ex, Ryan." Then came a picture that felt like a knife being twisted directly into my chest. It was Sophia and Ryan looking incredibly cozy on Brianna's couch, his arm wrapped around her intimately, with a timestamp from yesterday. Ryan, the ex she'd repeatedly told me not to worry about. The guy she'd dated for 8 months in college before he decided he couldn't commit. The same dude who had very conveniently started liking all her Instagram posts again right after we got engaged. Kelly's next text made everything even worse. She told Brianna she needed closure with him before the wedding. Brianna's been encouraging it the whole time. "I thought you should know. This isn't right." I stared at that text message for what felt like hours, my brain completely unable to process what I was seeing. Closure. 10 days before our wedding. Apparently, in Brianna's twisted vocabulary, closure meant, let me check if my ex is still an option before I settle for you. I immediately called my brother Derek. He's 36, divorced, and has the emotional sensitivity of a brick. But he's always been completely straight with me about everything. She's at Brianna's place with her ex-boyfriend, I told him, my voice probably sounding completely hollow. There was silence on the line for a moment, then Derek's voice. Well, goddammit! I knew that Brianna chick was bad news from day one. What are you going to do? After my brain finally unfroze from the initial shock, I made a decision that I knew would be painful but necessary. I had to start making calls. Calls that would officially end what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Each phone call felt like getting punched in the face by a stranger who demanded payment first. The venue, $4,200 deposit gone, just like that. Poof! The caterer, $2,800 vanished into thin air. The photographer, $1,600 disappeared with a cheerful, sorry, but we're booked for that day now. Every single vendor cancellation call felt like getting dumped all over again, except these people billed me before breaking my heart. At least Sophia had ghosted me for free. These vendors charged me for the privilege of ruining my dreams. The honeymoon flights were non-refundable, $1,500 down the drain. The resort booking was also non-refundable, $6,200 for that dream Bahamas getaway that Sophia had specifically insisted on. Because apparently her dream was to ghost me 10 days before committing to me for life. Every call, every email was another nail in the coffin of what was supposed to be our future together. All told, I was looking at approximately $12,500 in losses, and that was just my portion of the expenses. Her parents were supposed to be handling her dress and paying the florist directly, but I'd put down the initial booking deposit for everything, which meant I was stuck with the cancellation fees. Derek sat on my couch watching me make these devastating calls, and when I finally hung up from the venue, he just shook his head in disbelief. This is exactly why I got married at the courthouse, he said with his typical blunt honesty. Cost me $85 total. The divorce still cost me $18,000, but at least the wedding was cheap. Then came the even more painful calls, telling family and friends that the wedding was off. I didn't tell anyone about Ryan at that point. I just said that things hadn't worked out between us. My mom cried when I told her, which broke my heart all over again. My dad kept asking, "What happened, son?" Like I had any freaking clue how to explain this level of betrayal to anyone. My cousin Pete, who'd booked a flight from Chicago specifically for our wedding, was understandably frustrated. "Dude, are you serious? I just paid $520 for a non-refundable ticket," he said, and I felt terrible that his money was wasted because of Sophia's decisions. My best man Trevor, who'd been planning this epic bachelor party in Vegas that was supposed to happen that weekend, was equally blindsided. "What the hell, man? I put down deposits for everything," he said, and I could hear the disappointment in his voice. My grandma Ruth, who was 89 and had been looking forward to seeing me get married before she kicked the bucket, her words, not mine, had the most practical response. "Tyler, does this mean I should return the china set I bought you two?" I kept the receipt just in case. I've been married 3 times, so I know how these things go. Even in my devastated state, I had to appreciate her pragmatic approach to the situation. I texted Kelly back to thank her for telling me the truth. "Thanks for letting me know," I wrote. "Honestly, did Sophia know you were sending me this information?" She replied quickly with, "No way. Brianna would absolutely kill me if she knew. She's been telling Sophia that she deserves to explore all her options before settling down. Brianna's been bad-mouthing you for years, convinced Sophia that she was rushing into marriage. Great. So while I was busy picking out wedding cake flavors and finalizing seating arrangements, my fiancée was being systematically poisoned against me by her toxic friend and reconnecting with her ex-boyfriend. This was just fantastic. Then there was the issue of the engagement ring. It was a beautiful 1.2 carat cushion cut with vintage-inspired setting. Her absolute dream ring that had cost me $12,000. I took it to a jeweler and managed to get $7,800 for it, which was less than I'd hoped for, but more than I'd feared. That money went straight toward offsetting my massive losses, though it barely made a dent. The jeweler was an older guy named Morris, who gave me this knowing, sympathetic look when I brought the ring in. Let me guess. She changed her mind? When I nodded, he sighed deeply. Happens more than you'd think, unfortunately. Had a guy in here just last week selling a ring he'd bought 2 years ago. Found out his wife was having an affair with her yoga instructor. Life's a real bitch sometimes. I spent the next day methodically packing up every single thing of Sophia's that was in my apartment. Photos of us together, her clothes, that stupid carnival teddy bear I'd won for her at a fair last summer. Everything went into boxes, carefully labeled and ready for whenever she decided to show her face again. I even found one of those ridiculous self-love crystals she'd bought, the kind that supposedly wards off bad energy. I guess it must have expired before she ran off with her ex-boyfriend. I should have taped it to the door as a boomerang gift. I also printed out that picture Kelly had sent me and tucked it into the box with our wedding invitations. A little time capsule of betrayal that I figured she might want to remember someday. Derek helped me pack all her stuff, and at one point he picked up a framed photo of us from last Christmas and snorted with laughter. "Look at your face in this picture," he said, shaking his head. "That's the face of a man who doesn't know his fiancée is about to pull a Houdini act on him. You should have seen it coming when she put that live laugh love sign in your bathroom." While sorting through her belongings, I found a journal she'd left behind in one of my dresser drawers. I'm not usually the type to snoop through someone's private thoughts, but given the circumstances, I figured all bets were off. What I discovered when I flipped through it made everything so much worse. There were entries from 3 months ago where she'd written about seeing Ryan at a coffee shop by coincidence, and how it had stirred up old feelings that she needed to process. There were pages and pages about Brianna encouraging her to explore these emotions before getting married, telling her that it was normal and healthy to have doubts. Reading those words felt like being stabbed repeatedly. She'd been planning this betrayal for months. It wasn't some sudden case of cold feet or wedding jitters. This was a calculated decision to test drive her ex-boyfriend before committing to me. And Brianna, that manipulative snake, had been the architect of the entire plan. I added the journal to the box with all her other belongings. It served as evidence, not that I needed it for myself. The picture from Kelly was damning enough, but in case anyone tried to spin this narrative to make me look like the bad guy in this situation. Day 4 of what I'd started calling the Ghost Bride saga arrived with still no direct contact from Sophia. However, her parents were now calling me demanding to know why I was canceling everything without giving her a chance to explain herself. I told them their daughter was at Brianna's house, deliberately ignoring all my calls, and had effectively abandoned our wedding. I didn't mention Ryan at that point. It wasn't my story to tell, and I figured Sophia could deal with that revelation herself. Her dad, Robert, actually had the audacity to say, "Young people get cold feet sometimes, Tyler. It's perfectly normal. Sophia's always been sensitive. You should be more understanding." Understanding. I literally had to file a missing persons report because their daughter couldn't be bothered to send a single text before running off with her ex-boyfriend 10 days before our wedding. But sure, I was being unreasonable. 5 days of complete silence passed with nothing from Sophia. Then the other shoe dropped in the most dramatic way possible. I was at work in the middle of an important client meeting when my colleague Nancy poked her head into the conference room. "Tyler, sorry to interrupt, but you have a visitor who says it's urgent," she said with an apologetic expression. I walked out to the reception area, and there she was, Sophia, standing there with puffy red eyes and messy hair, looking like she'd been crying for a solid week. "Tyler," she said, her voice thick with tears as she tried to step forward for a hug. I immediately stepped back, maintaining my distance. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice low and professional since we were in my workplace. Nancy at the reception desk was suddenly very interested in her computer screen, though I could tell she was listening to every word of this conversation. "We need to talk," Sophia whispered, tears starting to well up in her eyes again. "Please, it's all been a horrible mistake." "A mistake. Ghosting me and your entire family 10 days before our wedding to hook up with your ex-boyfriend is a mistake. Forgetting to buy milk at the grocery store is a mistake. This was a tactical nuclear strike on our relationship and everyone who cared about us. I know I freaked out and got scared," she continued, reaching for my hand, which I quickly pulled away. "Brianna said some things that made me panic, and I didn't know how to face you afterward. I was ashamed of my behavior. Tyler, I still love you. I want to fix this and make it right." "Fix this?" I said, genuine disbelief creeping into my voice. "Sophia, there's nothing left to fix. It's completely done. I've already canceled everything. The wedding is off permanently." Her face crumpled for a moment, then morphed into something harder and more defensive. "You can't just do that without consulting me first," she said, her voice rising slightly. "That was our wedding. Those were our plans that we made together. Plans that you abandoned when you disappeared without a word to chase after your ex-boyfriend. I needed space. Her voice was getting louder now. Closure. You never understood that about me. You were always hovering, always wanting to know where I was and what I was doing. So now I was the controlling boyfriend for, let me check my notes here, wondering where my fiancé had vanished to 10 days before our wedding. The audacity was absolutely breathtaking. And what about Brianna? I asked, watching her reaction carefully. Will she be at the rebooked wedding too? Sophia's eyes widened slightly. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to bring up Brianna specifically. Brianna was just trying to help me sort through my feelings, she said defensively. She's always looked out for me, you know that. Yeah, I bet she has, I said flatly, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Your feelings seem to have led you to some very interesting places. She looked confused for a second, then quickly recovered her composure. I just needed time to think. To be absolutely sure about everything. You owe me that much at least after 5 years together. You owe me the chance to explain what happened. I don't owe you anything, Sophia, I replied firmly. Not a damn thing. You're being completely unreasonable about this, she snapped, her mask finally slipping to reveal the anger underneath. This isn't all about you, Tyler. I've been under so much pressure with all the wedding planning and dealing with everyone's expectations. It's not fair to put this all on me. You try dealing with all that stress and see how you handle it. Translation. Ryan wasn't interested in rekindling their relationship, so now I was her backup plan. No thanks. The way she was acting, you'd think she was the one who'd been abandoned and betrayed. Like somehow, I had wronged her by having the audacity to cancel a wedding after the bride went AWOL for over a week. It was next-level delusional behavior, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nancy at the reception desk was pretending not to listen, but I could see her eyes getting wider with each exchange we had. Tomorrow's office gossip was literally writing itself right in front of her, and I knew this would be the talk of the workplace for weeks. Sophia, I'm in the middle of an important client meeting, I said, trying to maintain some level of professionalism. I really can't do this right now. Of course, she sniffed dramatically. Your work is always more important than our relationship, isn't it? I nearly laughed out loud at the absolute absurdity of that statement. Our relationship? The one you put on pause while you went for a test drive with your ex-boyfriend? That relationship. What are you talking about exactly? I asked, though I had a pretty good idea where this was heading. Her face went completely pale. What do you mean? I don't know what you're implying. Save it, Sophia. I know about Ryan. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. Shock, followed immediately by guilt, followed by the desperate calculation of someone trying to figure out exactly how much I knew and how to spin the situation in her favor. That's not what it looks like, she stammered, clearly scrambling for an explanation. Ryan and I just talked as friends, nothing more. Brianna thought it would help give me some perspective on our relationship. Perspective on what, exactly? Whether you were settling for me? Whether he was a better option? Did you get your answer, by the way? Because it seems like you're back here talking to me, which suggests Ryan wasn't interested in round 2 of your relationship. Tears started streaming down her face again, right on cue like some kind of manipulative performance. You're being cruel to me, Tyler. I made a mistake. I was confused and scared and didn't know how to handle my emotions properly. Sophia, I sold the ring, I said bluntly, cutting through her theatrical display. That stopped her dead in her tracks. Her jaw literally dropped like in those cartoon movies where characters are shocked beyond belief. You what? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I sold it, just like I said. The engagement ring is gone. I lost over $12,500 in non-refundable deposits because of your disappearing act. The $7,800 I got from selling the ring barely made a dent in covering those losses, but it was absolutely necessary. You sold my ring? Her voice was rising to a dangerous level now. That was my ring, Tyler. My grandmother's setting was the inspiration for that design. How could you do something like that to me? Your ring? I bought it for a wedding that you abandoned without a word to anyone. It was a symbol of a commitment that you completely spat on. Having inspiration from your grandmother's ring doesn't make it an heirloom when I'm the one who paid $12,000 for it. But the money, she sputtered, clearly grasping at straws now. What about all that money? What about it? It partially covered the venue costs, the caterer, and the honeymoon expenses, all consequences of your actions that still left me massively out of pocket financially. She just stared at me in complete disbelief. You have to give me that money back. That money is partly mine because we were getting married. We're getting married, Past tense, Sophia. And no, I don't have to do anything except protect myself from any further financial damage. My boss, Mr. Donaldson, walked out of his office, clearly drawn by Sophia's increasingly loud voice echoing through the reception area. "Everything all right out here, Tyler?" he asked, looking concerned about the disruption. "Personal matter, Mr. Donaldson?" "It's being resolved," I said, giving Sophia a pointed look that clearly communicated she needed to leave immediately. But instead of taking the hint, Sophia actually had the audacity to appeal directly to my boss. "He sold my engagement ring and canceled our wedding without even talking to me first," she wailed dramatically, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Donaldson looked extremely uncomfortable. I'm sure he wasn't expecting to deal with relationship drama when he came out to check on the commotion. This was exactly the kind of situation no boss wants to find themselves in the middle of. "Sophia, this is completely inappropriate. You need to leave now," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice level and professional despite my growing frustration. "But Tyler, what about our families? What about all the deposits? My parents paid money too," she continued desperately. "Your parents paid for your dress, which I assume you still have," I replied matter-of-factly. "They were supposed to pay the florist directly, but they hadn't done so when I was forced to cancel everything. I got stuck with their $1,200 cancellation fee because I had made the initial booking. That got added to my already huge losses, and I have receipts for everything if anyone wants to see them. You can discuss those charges with your parents directly." She looked absolutely slapped by this information. The ugly crying intensified as the reality of the financial consequences started to sink in. "I made a mistake, Tyler. Don't I deserve some compassion and understanding?" she pleaded, her voice getting more desperate. I leaned in slightly and lowered my voice so that Mr. Donaldson and Nancy couldn't hear exactly what I was saying. "Compassion, maybe. But explain to me why you needed closure with Ryan at Brianna's place." "You've been spying on me," she hissed, completely ignoring everything else I had said and focusing only on the fact that I knew about Ryan. "I didn't need to spy on you, Sophia. People talk, and not everyone thinks what you did was okay." She switched tactics so fast it gave me whiplash, going from angry accusations to playing the victim card. "I've been through trauma, Tyler. Do you have any idea what it's like to have anxiety about commitment? I'm suffering here, and you're trying to punish me for having a mental health crisis." Oh, great. Now she was weaponizing mental health issues to justify her behavior. This was absolutely classic manipulation. "This conversation is finished," she said, gathering what little dignity she had left while wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer about that ring money." "Oh, it definitely is finished," I replied calmly. In the immortal words of Terminator 2, "Hasta la vista, baby." Nancy actually snorted with laughter behind her computer screen as Sophia stormed out of the office, nearly tripping over a decorative plant in her dramatic exit. Mr. Donaldson, to his credit, just gave me a sympathetic nod and patted my shoulder. "Take the rest of the day if you need it, Tyler." That looked rough. I declined his offer. Work was actually the one place where I could focus on something productive other than the complete dumpster fire my personal life had become. Later that evening, when I told Derek about the workplace ambush, he nearly fell off his chair laughing. "She showed up at your job? That's some serious Gone Girl level psycho behavior right there," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Next thing you know, she'll be writing a memoir called My Escape from Patriarchy. How I survived a week at my friend's house with my ex-boyfriend." The sheer audacity of the whole situation was what really got to me. She was acting like I was the villain for canceling a wedding that she had abandoned. Like I should have just sat around twiddling my thumbs, waiting for her to decide whether she wanted to be with me or Ryan, while vendors demanded payment and guests made travel arrangements. "Women, man," Derek said, shaking his head. "My ex-wife pulled something similar when she told me she needed to find herself and went on a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. She came back 3 weeks later with a new tattoo and stories about a Brazilian surfing instructor named Carlos. Said she wanted an open marriage, so I told her she could have an open divorce instead. That night, I checked my email to find a message from a lawyer named Gerald Thompson, claiming to represent Sophia in the matter of unlawfully disposed property, aka the engagement ring. He was demanding that I return the full value of $12,000, not the $7,800 I actually received for it, plus an additional $4,000 in emotional damages. I immediately forwarded it to my cousin Jen, who happens to be a lawyer, with the subject line, "Can you believe this shit?" She called me 10 minutes later, laughing so hard she could barely speak. "Is this for real? She's actually trying to sue you for selling an engagement ring after she ghosted you before the wedding? And she wants emotional damages? What's her legal claim? That you deprived her of the opportunity to pawn it herself. Apparently it has sentimental value, I said, mimicking Sophia's whiny voice. Yeah, well, sentimentality doesn't hold up in court, Jen said confidently. Engagement rings are conditional gifts contingent upon marriage. No marriage, no entitlement to the ring. That's basic contract law. I'll draft a response that'll make this Thompson guy crawl back under whatever ambulance-chasing rock he came from. That same night, Sophia's mom called. Let's call her Patricia. Patricia has always been primarily concerned with appearances. Polite on the surface, but judgmental as hell underneath. She's the type of woman who'd smile sweetly while insulting your entire existence. I remember she once asked me if I was comfortable in my limited career aspirations, or if I had any real ambitions for the future. Classic Patricia behavior. Tyler, she began, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Sophia is absolutely beside herself, completely distraught about this whole situation. I can imagine, I said dryly. Screaming in someone's workplace tends to be emotionally exhausting. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Now you listen here, young man. I will not tolerate that tone from you. My daughter is the injured party in all of this mess. How absolutely rich, the injured party. She made a mistake, yes, but your response has been completely disproportionate and vindictive, Patricia continued. Selling her ring, canceling everything without consulting anyone. Do you have any idea how this makes our family look to everyone who knows us? And there it was, the real concern. Not about her daughter's behavior or the pain she'd caused, but about how it all looked to their social circle. Patricia had the unbelievable audacity to suggest that Sophia's idea of making amends should involve me reinstating the wedding and returning the ring money. When I called this suggestion completely delusional, she pivoted to making sentimental value arguments about the ring design, a design that Sophia had literally picked from a catalog at the jewelry store. Patricia reminded me that they'd given us $4,200 for the honeymoon expenses. I calmly explained that money had gone directly to the non-refundable Bahamas resort that Sophia had specifically insisted on booking. I had receipts and bank statements to prove exactly where every dollar had gone. It's completely improper for you to have kept that money, she declared imperiously. I'll be speaking to our attorney about this matter immediately. God, they were all suddenly lawyer happy. When I detailed the florist cancellation fee that I'd been forced to cover when they defaulted on their portion of the payments, Patricia absolutely exploded. That's outrageous! You're trying to extort money from us, she shrieked. I want to speak to your parents about this immediately. They need to know exactly what kind of son they raised. Her defense of Sophia's behavior reached peak absurdity when she claimed that Sophia had just gotten scared. Young girls do these sorts of things, she said dismissively. I myself had doubts before marrying Robert. It's perfectly normal behavior for someone her age. She's 27 years old, Patricia, not 17, I replied firmly. Decent people don't do these things to the people they claim to love. I was sorely tempted to mention Ryan and Brianna's involvement in this whole mess, but I held back. If Sophia hadn't told her parents the full truth about what she'd been doing, I wasn't going to be the one to drop that particular bomb. Let her deal with her own mess and face the consequences of her lies. This conversation went on for what felt like hours, showcasing the most astounding sense of entitlement I'd ever encountered. Patricia genuinely believed that because Sophia was sorry, a sorry that I hadn't actually heard in any meaningful way, all the financial burdens should either vanish into thin air or become entirely my responsibility to bear. She even had the nerve to suggest that I should apologize to Sophia for selling her ring. You need to do the right thing here, Tyler, she said sanctimoniously. Sophia is willing to forgive you if you apologize properly and replace the ring. She's being very generous considering how much you've embarrassed her publicly. I was genuinely tempted to say, you know what, Patricia? I'll give Sophia the ring money back when she pays me for the trust issues I'll have for the rest of my life. But somehow I managed to keep it professional. Derek's response when I told him about Patricia's phone call was priceless. Wait, let me get this straight. Her daughter disappears for over a week before your wedding, hooks up with her ex-boyfriend, then comes crying back when he doesn't want her, and somehow you're supposed to apologize. What's next? Are you going to write her a thank you note for completely destroying your life? These people live in a completely different reality, bro, he continued, shaking his head in amazement. Honestly, Derek should start a podcast, just him roasting relationship disasters and terrible in-laws. He could call it No Ring, No Refund. I'd subscribe twice, but Patricia's call was just the beginning of their family's campaign against me. The next day, Sophia's dad, Robert, hit me with an email that somehow managed to be even more condescending than his wife's phone call. He went full man-to-man mode, claiming that we needed to resolve the situation like gentlemen. According to Robert, Sophia was just overwhelmed by all the wedding planning stress. The absolute nerve of this man, suggesting that I should forgive what he called a momentary lapse in judgment, completely blew my mind. Momentary? She had ghosted everyone for over a week. These people were clearly living in some parallel universe where disappearing before your wedding was just a quirky personality trait. It was absolutely unreal. I kept my response short and sweet, a single line promising to send them a comprehensive breakdown of all wedding-related expenses with full documentation. Then Sophia's sister Madison called, and thankfully, she turned out to be the one reasonable person in that entire family. "Tyler, I'm so sorry about all of this," she said immediately. "I know Sophia messed up big time, and I wanted you to know that not everyone in our family thinks you're the bad guy here." "Thanks, Madison. That honestly means a lot to me," I replied, feeling genuinely grateful to hear some sanity from someone in Sophia's family. "For what it's worth, I don't think she deserves another chance after what she did," Madison continued. "Who does something like that to someone they supposedly love? And 10 days before the wedding. It's absolutely insane behavior. At least someone in that family had their head screwed on straight and could see the situation for what it really was. But Sophia's parents continued their relentless harassment campaign against me, so I decided to put an end to it once and for all. I sent one final message to Patricia. "I'm sending you, Robert, and Sophia an itemized list of all wedding-related expenses that I managed or was left responsible for. It will clearly show who these costs were originally owed by and who caused each loss. It will demonstrate that no one is profiting from this situation, least of all me. And it will clearly state the $1,200 florist bill that I covered on your behalf. You can reimburse me for that or not, your choice entirely. But any further demands or threats will result in a cease and desist letter from my attorney. Are we clear?" There was dead silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Then Patricia's voice came back, dripping with indignation. "You wouldn't dare threaten us. Do you have any idea who Robert's golf buddies are? We have important connections in this town. Classic Patricia power play, threatening me with her husband's social network. Try me," I said simply, and hung up the phone. It wasn't particularly pleasant, but my rage had become a clean, focused fire at that point. They genuinely thought they could bully me into paying for Sophia's enormous mistake and taking responsibility for her destructive choices. The next day, I did exactly what I'd promised. I created the most meticulous spreadsheet I'd ever put together in my life. Every vendor, every deposit, all the dates, scanned copies of receipts. Everything was documented with obsessive detail. I highlighted the florist cancellation fee that I'd been forced to cover on their behalf, attached proof of the ring sale, and showed how that money had only partially offset my massive losses. I seriously debated whether to include the photo that Kelly had sent me of Sophia and Ryan together on Brianna's couch. In the end, I decided against it. My goal wasn't to launch nuclear warfare against them, just to establish clear boundaries and present the facts. But I did save that photo separately, just in case things escalated further and I needed additional ammunition. I made 3 copies of everything and sent them via registered mail with return receipt requested. One for Sophia, one for her parents. I wanted absolute proof that they'd received the documentation. Derek looked over the spreadsheet before I sent it out, and his reaction was perfect. "Damn, bro, this is the most beautiful screw you I've ever seen in my life. It's like poetry, but with numbers and receipts. It brings a tear to my eye." Around the same time, I texted Kelly to check in and thank her again for being honest with me. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for telling me the truth about everything. Has there been any fallout on your end?" She replied quickly. "Brianna's been acting really sketchy. She knows someone told you something, but she's not sure who. Sophia actually moved out yesterday after having a huge fight with Brianna. Apparently, Ryan made it crystal clear that he was just having fun and wasn't interested in getting back together seriously. Brianna told Sophia she deserved better than both of you guys. The whole situation is toxic as hell." The irony of this was absolutely incredible. Brianna had systematically blown up Sophia's entire life just to prove some twisted feminist point about independence, then kicked her out the moment things got inconvenient for her. It was loyalty sponsored by TikTok therapy sessions and $15 iced lattes. So Sophia wasn't even staying with Brianna anymore. After her dramatic office confrontation with me, the falling out with Brianna, and the rejection from Ryan, She was back living with her parents like a teenager who'd been grounded. My carefully documented spreadsheet landed right in the middle of this family reunion. The next day, I was at work dealing with a long day at a construction site. I got home around 8 p.m., and immediately something felt wrong. The air in my apartment smelled different, like her perfume was still lingering in the space. Sophia had definitely been there. I had texted her earlier that day telling her she could pick up her boxed belongings from my living room while I was at work. I'd even said I would leave the door unlocked between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., so she could just grab everything and go without any awkward confrontation. Turns out she'd waited until much later than that to make her move. I walked into my home office and immediately froze in complete shock. My custom gaming PC, the one I'd built myself and spent thousands of dollars on, the machine that had gotten me through college and countless hours of stress relief, was absolutely destroyed. The tower was lying on the floor with the side panel completely bashed in, and components were scattered everywhere like some kind of technology graveyard. Someone had clearly taken a hammer or baseball bat to the entire system with deliberate, methodical precision. Water from the cooling system was pooled on the floor, creating a small lake of destruction around the remnants of my expensive equipment. My hands were literally shaking as I picked up a piece of what used to be my graphics card, a $950 RTX card that I'd saved for months to buy. It was snapped completely in half like a broken wishbone. There was a handwritten note stuck to my monitor that made my blood run cold. "Now we're even." Even. She thought we were even now. I was seeing red. But I forced myself to think strategically before doing anything rash. I immediately called my neighbor Jeff, who has one of those Ring doorbell cameras that faces toward my apartment building. "Hey Jeff, any chance your doorbell camera caught anyone coming to my place today?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, actually, your girlfriend stopped by around 6:30, he replied. "Thought that was kind of odd since, she's your ex-fiancée now and all that." "Yeah, it is definitely odd. Any chance you could send me that footage?" I asked. "Sure thing, man. I'll email it to you right now." The footage showed Sophia clear as day, walking confidently into my apartment building at exactly 6:42 p.m., carrying what unmistakably looked like a small sledgehammer. What the actual fuck was wrong with this woman? She left my building at 6:55 p.m. looking absolutely smug, like she'd just dropped the hottest diss track of the year. She walked out of there like Kanye storming out of an interview. Meanwhile, I was standing over the remains of my graphics card like it was a war crime scene. I immediately took photos of everything. The destruction, the note, close-up shots of all the broken components, the water damage to my floor. Then I texted Sophia directly. "Why the fuck did you destroy my PC?" 3 dots appeared on my screen immediately. She'd been waiting for this exact moment. "I don't know what you're talking about," came her reply. "Really? So that wasn't you entering my apartment with a hammer at 6:42 p.m. today?" There was silence for about a minute then. "You deserved it after what you did to me." "Gotcha." Screenshot saved immediately. "What exactly did I do to deserve $2,500 worth of property damage?" I texted back. "You humiliated me publicly. You destroyed our future together, and you sold my ring," she replied. "And that justifies criminal destruction of property," I responded. "Great. Thanks for the written confession. The police will be very interested in that along with my neighbor's security footage." "You wouldn't dare call the police. It would be your word against mine," she shot back. I immediately sent her the screenshot of her own confession text. "It's not your word against mine when you just admitted to it in writing. Plus, I have video evidence of you entering my apartment with a weapon." I filed a police report about the PC destruction that very night. I had to go through small claims court to get compensation for the damages, but with the overwhelming evidence I had collected, it was pretty straightforward. Sophia tried to fight the case, claiming that I had emotionally damaged her and that her actions were justified self-defense. But the judge wasn't buying any of her victim narrative. The court ordered her to pay $2,200 for the PC replacement plus court costs and gave her 30 days to comply. It's been a few months now, and life just keeps moving forward. After I sent that financial truth bomb spreadsheet and won the small claims case, things finally settled into the most blessed, golden silence I'd ever experienced in my life. No more harassing phone calls from Patricia demanding apologies. No more tearful ambushes from Sophia at my workplace. I never did get the $1,200 reimbursement for the florist cancellation fee. I knew I wouldn't. Prying money from self-righteous Patricia would have been like trying to baptize a cat. But the principle had been asserted, and my spreadsheet had detailed my complete financial burden, including covering their family's lapses in responsibility. Sophia did pay the court-ordered $2,200 for my PC replacement, though. The court had given her 30 days to comply, and on day 29, a check arrived in my mailbox. No note, no apology, just the exact amount required. Small victories, I suppose. What I did get was this absolute gem of information from Madison about a month ago. Tyler, you are not going to believe this, or maybe you totally will. Sophia tried to get mom and dad to pay for a healing retreat to help her recover from the trauma of the wedding cancellation and what she called legal persecution. She wanted $2,500 for it. Dad actually said no, flat out refused, Madison continued. He told her that her healing could start with getting a job and paying back the deposits they did lose on her dress and alterations. Mom's been giving Dad the silent treatment ever since, and Sophia's been having a complete hysterical circus about the whole thing. That piece of information was better than any $1,200 reimbursement. Watching entitled people hit the family brick wall was pure poetry. Robert finally finding his backbone and standing up to both his wife and daughter was even better. Madison dropped this absolute bomb on me. By the way, Kelly sent that picture of Sophia and Ryan to Mom. She said she couldn't stand listening to all the lies anymore and felt like the family deserved to know the truth. Mom confronted Sophia about it, and it was absolutely apocalyptic, Madison continued. Sophia tried to say it was completely innocent, just closure like she'd been telling everyone. But Mom wasn't buying it for a second. Dad actually packed a bag and went to stay with my uncle for 4 days after finding out. It's the first time I've ever seen him walk out on the family like that. Derek and I were playing Call of Duty on my new PC, upgraded thanks to Sophia's court-ordered payment, when I told him about the healing retreat request. He nearly choked on his drink laughing. A healing retreat for what? Terminal entitlement? Advanced narcissism? He said between gasps. I swear these people think reality is completely optional. What's next? A GoFundMe for her emotional support unicorn? My life is genuinely good now. I sold our old couch and bought a new one that's just for me. I've completely reclaimed my space and made it mine again. I'm hitting the gym regularly. Work is solid and fulfilling, and Mr. Donaldson even gave me a promotion after seeing how professionally I handled the Sophia situation at the office. Dating? Hell no, not yet. My brother's perspective on this is perfect. Take your time, bro. You just dodged a bullet that would have made Neo from the Matrix proud. Enjoy the freedom while you have it. Sophia faced the full consequences of her choices, and as my dad always says, the best revenge is living well. She made her bed with her lies and betrayal, and now she's lying in it with her parents constantly complaining about her behavior and choices. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping just fine in my completely drama-free apartment. I'm playing Elden Ring on my upgraded PC that Sophia involuntarily helped finance through her destructive tantrum. There's no random sobbing at 3 a.m. No, can we please talk text in the middle of the night, and no stepping on hair clips in my bathroom. It's just me, my controller, a fully stocked fridge, and the satisfying hum of a high-end GPU that didn't cheat on me with its ex-boyfriend. As the great poet Ice Cube once said, today was a good day. TLDR. My fiancée disappeared 10 days before our wedding. Turned out she was with her ex-boyfriend seeking closure, while her toxic friend encouraged her to explore her options. I canceled everything, lost $12,500 in deposits, sold the engagement ring, and when she came crawling back after her ex rejected her, her family demanded I reinstate everything and pay them money. When I refused and documented all my losses, she broke into my apartment and destroyed my gaming PC with a sledgehammer. I sued her, won, and used the court settlement to build an even better PC. Now I'm living my best drama-free life while she's back at her parents' house having meltdowns about needing a $2,500 healing retreat to recover from the trauma of facing consequences for her actions. What do you think, Reddit? Did I handle this situation correctly, or should I have been more understanding about her need for closure with her ex?